Oh, hello. How are you today? My name is Robert, and I'm the Casual Comic Fan. Today, I wanted to do something a little bit different than what I normally do. And what that is instead of reviewing a comic issue by issue, I want to review a show. And I've decided that show was going to be Masters of the Universe Revelation. Unlike other videos, this is going to be broken up into parts. And I'm hoping I can do it all on one video. We shall see. The first part is the actual review of the show. And I'm not going to be breaking it down episode by episode, just general thoughts. Second part, the controversy surrounding it. As you know, this is made by Kevin Smith. And he has gotten a lot of flack for this show. We're going to investigate that as well. The last part, well, almost the last part, is what I like to call wild-ass speculation. There are some rumors coming in with this possible involvement in Star Wars. We're going to be taking a look at that as well. See if there's any validity to it or not. And then last, we'll come up with some sort of conclusion about it. Alright, I've been looking forward to making this. Oh, by the way, if it looks like I'm shooting it in my garage, it's because I'm shooting it in my garage. You may or may not be able to hear my dogs in the background. They're not cooperating. I got the garage door open because it's fucking hot in here.
So I want to start this off by prefacing it and letting you know that when it comes to Kevin Smith, I'm a fan. I was a teenager when Clerks came out, and I've followed his career since then. So I was listening to an episode of Fat Man Beyond back in 2020. Kev announced a new series based on He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. It was not only a series, but it was a direct sequel to the 83 through 85 cartoon. Now, I know Masters of the Universe, and I watched it as a kid, but it wasn't Star Wars for me. Having said that, though, I am in the perfect demographic for it. Before the premiere, I had heard some rumblings that this was not going to be what you think it's going to be. So when I went into it, I already knew that, and that really wasn't a factor for me. I was kind of more of a fan of Kevin Smith and Mark Bernardin, who is proving to be a very capable TV show writer and comic book writer. He's got some. I should review him. It's not a bad idea. But needless to say, the rumblings that I heard indicated that fans probably would not be happy with the job that Kevin Smith did. But I watched it anyway. And I'll let you know right now, I actually kind of enjoyed the show. Had some interesting ideas, but I can definitely see where longtime fans would be upset by the show. Now, I know I said I wouldn't go episode by episode, but there were a few things in episode 1 I really wanted to highlight. First and foremost, it really was the same feel of the cartoon from 83 to 85. It had that same type of vibe, and that was really, really cool. The vocal talent that they enlisted was great too. Chris Wood did a very good job playing Prince Adam and He-Man, and when he baritones into the "I have the power," yeah, I believed him. Sarah Michelle Gellar, great. I liked her Tila. Mark Hamill, I mean, come on. He's the Joker. This is Luke Skywalker we're talking about. He's a legend. Stephen Root makes every project that he's in better. Don't believe me? Watch Oh Brother Where Art Thou. Watch Idiocracy. Watch News Radio. King of the Hill. You'll see. And then finally, Orko, voiced by Griffin Newman. The cool thing about his performance is there wasn't an Orko voice. It was one of the producers doing it at normal speed and normal pitch, and it was ran through filter after filter until they got the voice they wanted. Griffin Newman was able to replicate it just based on his vocal talent. I think that's pretty impressive. I dug it. As I said, it really had that He-Man and the Masters of the Universe feel to it. And then at the end, we get the revelation. All right, beyond episode 1, I'm going to point out the good things on this. And of course, I have to point out some of the bad things too. I think what Kevin Smith was going for from episode 2 and beyond was Eternia without magic. What would that be like? I think it's interesting that the characters kind of turned to technology as a substitute. We've kind of seen that in other forms like Stephen King, the Gunslinger series. I kind of dug Triclops and his techno cult that he did. But did anybody notice it had a very Conan the Barbarian, Thulsa Doom kind of look to it? Am I the only one? Can't be. I mean, Kevin's not that much older than me, so we have many of the same references. Anyway, I thought that was cool. I dug Orko. I thought his storyline was really good and kind of came full circle. They made you care about him, and when his demise happened, it really was meaningful. I did like Evil Lynn. I liked the fact that her and the good side had to team up. There wasn't enough magic left to squabble over. Everybody had to work together. I liked the inclusion of Scareglow, which I believe was a toy only. It didn't make its way into the show. In some of the comic books, yes, but not the show. Let's get to the meat of the matter, and that is beyond episode 1. This is not a show about He-Man anymore. It's about Teela. And a lot of the longtime fans will say that this is not even a Teela they recognize. She's harsher, she's meaner. She's got a weird haircut, and she's pretty yoked. I mean, damn, her arms. Boy, howdy. If I remember correctly, and I read only a brief article about it, Kevin had said the whole goal of the show is to take the ultimate weapon, which would be the Sword of Power, and keep it out of He-Man's hands. And I get that. I mean, as a character, He-Man is not that interesting. He's not even really a character. He's a plot device. The ultimate Deus Ex Machina, if I'm pronouncing correctly, and if I'm using it in the correct terms. I don't know. But anyway, so that's why they set it around Teela. Now, I get this. I really do get this. A lot of comic book writers have struggled trying to write Superman. Superman movies have struggled trying to portray him in a manner that's relevant to today, but it can be done. The most recent iteration of Superman is Superman and Lois, and what did they do? They didn't focus on Superman, they focused on Clark, specifically Clark being a father. Now, even for Superman, being a father is scary as shit. Trust me, I got kids. I'm not saying they should have made He-Man a father, but the part they could have done was focused on Adam. He was always the more interesting of the two versions. Now, granted, yeah, they did that in the end, but if it was a show about Teela and Adam, I think nobody would have been bothered by that, instead of just focusing on Teela. Now, the other point that people are getting mad about is the whole factor that they feel like they've been bait and switched. Now they got a point there. If you look at the ad campaign building up to Masters of the Universe Revelation, it is all He-Man. All He-Man, all day. Only a couple snippets of Teela and her haircut and the yoked physique make it into the trailers. So, as I said, I can see why he would think it's necessary for storytelling, but the audience had no clue this was going to happen. I had an idea that it would, so I went in there knowing it would, and I enjoyed myself. But if Masters of the Universe, and He-Man specifically, were Star Wars and my Luke Skywalker and this happened, yeah, I'd be kind of pissed. Now let's talk about the controversy. As of the time of recording, Masters of the Universe Revelation has a 94% rating from critics and a 39% average audience score. Now that's quite a disparity. One possible explanation is review bombing, and this is where a small number of people just review the hell out of something negatively. Another project that suffered from this fate was The Last Jedi. This movie received a 91% critic rating and a 42% audience score. So the two have some things in common. Now again, one of the biggest complaints about this show is the idea that they've been bait and switched. That it was going to be about He-Man and Prince Adam, and instead it was all about Teela. And again, a version of Teela that prior to the show did not exist. I'm more or less paraphrasing an article in Comic Book Resources. Another complaint I've seen about the show is that it's too woke. Woke meaning it is forcing representation. A quote from Urban Ninja on Twitter says, "He-Man not only dies once, but twice. Masters of the Universe Revelation is nothing but feminist SJW series. Another failure. Go woke, go broke." Now, for those who don't know, SJW means social justice warrior. And not a small number of the audience feel that this is a trend that Hollywood has been going toward, thinking it's going to garner more audiences when it pretty much just divides the fans. Whether or not that's true or people are being crybabies about it, I don't know. I can see both sides of the story. Personally, I think representation is a good thing, especially when it can serve the overall story. Case in point, look at the 2017 movie Black Panther. Need I say more? Oh, Chadwick Boseman, I miss you. Rest in peace, my king. Wakanda forever. But of course, there are examples where it seems like representation is the only goal. Case in point, the latest Terminator movie. They literally killed John Connor, the heart and soul of the whole franchise, in favor of new characters. Really doesn't make much sense. At all. I haven't even watched the movie. I don't care to. But having said that, I still can't say if this was the case with Masters of the Universe Revelation, or if it was an effort to subvert audience expectations. Now, where have I heard that phrase before? Thinking back, I think it was 2017, Last Jedi. Now, an interesting part of this is apparently Rian Johnson took to Instagram, and if this post is accurate, he says, "Listen, anyone can bait and switch, but to do so on a cartoon and then blame critics for being babies because it's for kids." Ha 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 ha. Genius. Kids weren't even alive for the original He-Man cartoon. It was obviously marketed at 40-year-old toxic white men, and when they showed up, whammo. Kevin stabs them in the back, and when they cry, he twists the knife. He really outdid my Star Wars. I'm man enough to admit it. Wow, Ryan. Wow. It's really nice to know how you think of fans. Now, I'll admit, there is toxicity in fandom, but wow, that is an amazing post. Now, this is also kind of funny because Kevin Smith hasn't been completely complimentary of The Last Jedi. He does so in a subtle way, but it's kind of clear that he doesn't care for some of the directions that Rian Johnson did. Now, of course, this could be because of his friendship with J.J. Abrams. He visited both the set of The Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker. He did not for The Last Jedi because him and Ryan don't have that kind of relationship. So it is intriguing that something that he didn't appreciate about The Last Jedi, he ended up using for Masters of the Universe Revelations. Now we come to Kevin Smith's tweeting and his involvement on YouTube and pretty much any forum that he can get across. Way back in March, Clownfish TV tweeted, "My understanding of Kevin Smith's He-Man series from an alleged insider. Teela is a better He-Man than Adam, and he steps aside to let her and her girlfriend take over hero duties. If true, this won't play well." Now, mind you, this wasn't even tweeted at Kevin Smith. It was just kind of put out there. Kevin responded, "As showrunner, I really could have used these suggestions before we locked down the scripts. However, no. He-Man does no stepping aside, and Teela has no girlfriend in our show. The storyline is pretty dark and way metal. Before Revelations, we were calling it End of the Universe." Now, if you watch the show, you can kind of see that really wasn't the case. I mean, granted, we still have part 2, so we don't know what the resolution of the story is going to be. But I would estimate that He-Man and Prince Adam are probably in, at best, 20% of the story. Was this Kevin intentionally misleading his audience, or trying not to let story elements leak online? If it was the latter, that's completely understandable. Another response of Kevin Smith in regards to the show and the possible bait and switch, stop it, Star, is, "I see people online go, hey man, they're getting rid of He-Man. Like, you really fucking think Mattel Television, who hired me and paid me money, wants to do a fucking Masters of the Universe show without He-Man? grow the fuck up, man. Like, that blew my mind. A bunch of people being like, oh, I smell it. That's a bait and switch. Well, like I said, 20% of the show had He-Man in it so far. So, I don't know. Now, this quote, which I did find out was from Variety interview, has fans claiming that he is fan-blaming now by telling him to grow the fuck up. Yeah, I could see how they would think that. I mean, it's not really good to try to insult the paying audience because they didn't like your show. So that's not good. But all in all, we still haven't seen the second part of the show. Until then, I guess we have to speculate whether or not it will redeem the promise that Kevin Smith said about more He-Man in a Masters of the Universe show, or if Teela will actually be the lead of the show from now on. So we shall see. So we are here at the point of the video that I like to call wild-ass speculation, because it is, in fact, wild-ass speculation. On August 16th on Mike Zero's YouTube channel, and again on Clownfish TV on August 15th, there was a story about Kevin Smith being involved in a Star Wars project. Now, this is nothing new. There has been speculation about him doing Star Wars since the sequel trilogy was announced. But this had a different angle to it, which makes it intriguing and totally in the realm of possibility. I am not taking anything away from Mike Zero. His channel is entertaining and of course has a lot of Star Wars news. Damn, I would love the number of subscribers he has. But Mike Zero will post rumor along with news stories. Clownfish TV also did a video along the same lines. So let's dive into this story. The long and short of it is Kevin Smith apparently has met with Lucasfilm studio head Kathleen Kennedy and showrunner Leslie Headland about directing and possibly writing episodes for a Disney Plus Star Wars show. For those who don't know, Kathleen Kennedy is the controversial head of the studio. It is important to note that she was not a Disney hire, but instead became co-chair of Lucasfilm and was promoted to president after George Lucas sold the studio to Disney. So again, it wasn't Disney CEO Bob Iger who hired Kathleen Kennedy. She came with the studio. Of course, at the time this made perfect sense. She has producer credits on some of the biggest box office hits of the 20th century, so her appointment to the head of the studio made a lot of sense. Now, according to which Star Wars fan you talk to, she is either a very effective studio head, or possibly the living embodiment of Emperor Palpatine himself. Some of her decision-making has been questionable when appealing to longtime fans of the franchise. Also, I am fully aware that Star Wars fandom was divided long before she took charge. I mean, we debate who shot first, Han or Greedo. If Ewoks are dumb or savage guerrilla warfare geniuses that have a taste for human and Wookiee blood. Seriously, they wanted to cook Han, Luke, and Chewie. Also, at the end of the movie, they were using stormtrooper helmets as drums. Where did the stormtroopers go? It was a victory feast that night. Anyway, the point I'm getting at is knowing the fandom is prone to being divisive. One would think perhaps coming up with a new Star Wars that would appeal to the broadest audience possible would be a great idea. Perhaps that was the reason for The Force Awakens. But in execution, the sequel trilogy did little to satisfy some of the longtime fans of the series. Some of the complaints about Star Wars are the sequel series got woke and pushed a feminist agenda. They killed off longtime heroes in favor of new ones like Rey. Lastly, the quality of the movies suffered from Kathleen Kennedy's inserting her personal politics into the genre. Again, I acknowledge there is toxicity in fandom, and a great deal of the toxicity is uncalled for. But toxicity exists on both sides. I'm talking about a certain director who likes to call dudes man babies. Not cool insulting paying customers. I'm not going to name names, but it sounds a lot like Zion Bronson. For me, I dislike the sequels because, well, they're just not that good. The Force Awakens was interesting, but it was a rehash of the original. I really didn't care for The Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker? I can't add any more than what has already been said about it. Weird. I just had a realization. The Rise of Skywalker is pretty much disliked by longtime fans and new fans. I wonder if this could be a bridge to unity. Interesting. According to some YouTube channels like Overlord DVD and Midnight's Edge, a civil war broke out in Lucasfilm between Kathleen Kennedy and Disney CEO Bob Chapek. Bob Iger had stepped down at this point, over the heart and soul of Lucasfilm. Ultimately, Disney won and has greatly reduced the authority of Kathleen Kennedy. And if these reports are accurate, her contract will not be renewed on October 30th, 2021, when it expires. Instead, the Mandalorian creator and showrunner Jon Favreau will ascend to the head of Lucasfilm, with Dave Filoni possibly having a great amount of input on creative decisions. Is any of this true? I don't know. If there was a civil war at Lucasfilm, it would have happened at the highest level of management. We're just not privy to those conversations. So we are left to speculate. I will say that I've seen on Beyond the Trailer, Grace Randolph report that Kathleen Kennedy is leaving, and her reporting has been pretty spot on. I mean, just look at Release the Snyder Cut. She called it. That's all I'm saying. Anywho, if it is all true, it left Kathleen Kennedy in charge of one Disney Plus show, and that was guaranteed by her contract. So you might be asking yourself, why am I rambling on, and is this relevant? Well, it is, because the show in question is the one that Leslie Headland is showrunning, and Kevin Smith has allegedly been asked to direct episodes. The show is The Mysterious Acolyte. Well, actually, it's just called The Acolyte. So far, all we know is that it is set in the High Republic age. This is a fairly recent creation of Disney Star Wars. And really, that's about all we know at this point. Now, again, I have no idea if this is true, but it is intriguing. Why, you may ask? For a couple reasons. This offer came off the heels of Kevin Smith's Revelation series. Is it possible Kev was virtue signaling Kathleen Kennedy with this series? Honestly, that might be pretty hard because the distributor of the show, Netflix, is in a fierce competition with Disney Plus over the top streaming service. I think more likely scenario is when Headland was announced as showrunner, there was some backlash for no other reason than she had been employed by Harvey Weinstein as an assistant, possibly during the time of Weinstein's sexual abuse allegations took place. There was some questions about Headland's hiring for that very purpose. Kevin Smith was one of the few people in the business to speak complimentary of Headland and her hiring. I wish I could find the podcast. I think it was a Fat Man Beyond or Hollywood Babylon where he said it, but I just haven't found it. This could instill loyalty both to Headland and Kathleen Kennedy. Also, there is another possibility to consider. Kevin Smith is a middle-aged white filmmaker and geek culture icon who, up until recently, held a lot of goodwill in that community. Perhaps this is a way to appeal to the 40-something white man babies. If so, it's not the most terrible move. Or at least it wouldn't have been the most terrible move before Motu Revelations had dropped. Anyway, I still think it's not a bad idea. Simply because a little known fact about Kevin Smith is he's been directing episodic television for the past few years now. His work is pretty well received, and he is well liked by the cast and crew. So hiring Kevin Smith may not have the effect that they were hoping for, but it's still not a bad hire. Because at the very least, they would get a very competent director, and one that still might hold some sway in the geek community. I don't know. But again, this is wild-ass speculation, so we shall see. So, we are near the end of the video. and the time that I promised some sort of conclusion. For the show itself, I enjoyed it, but I can see why some audiences would be upset. We talked about the possibility of Kev working on a Star Wars show. I forgot something in the last video, but perhaps this is a stepping stone for the project that Kevin has hinted at back in December. Red 6, the extraordinary life and times of the famous X-Wing pilot, Porkins. Just an aside, Kevin Smith, if you do ever watch this video and make it to the end, I would make a fantastic Porkins. I would rock the shit out of that role. Just saying. But back to the subject at hand. Was there a bait and switch? Absolutely. But that may not be the fault of Kev, but the marketing for the show. Let's think about it. He-Man is the most recognizable character on Motu, so of course he would be all over the advertising. As we know, truth and advertising sometimes diverge greatly. Here are some examples of bait and switches. In the movie Jaws, the shark is only in the movie for mere minutes. The movie was more about the sheriff and a couple sailors. Come to think of it, character development is non-existent. The shark starts off as a bloodthirsty shark and ends up a dead shark. Kinda sad, since the shark is the star of the movie. Now let's look at The Wolf of Wall Street. The movie indeed has some scenes on Wall Street, but there were no wolves. Trust me, I've watched the movie. I didn't see any. And the worst offender, there was little to no practical instruction on quilting in the movie How to Make an American Quilt. This is shocking since the title clearly says it is a how to make an American quilt. All kidding aside, truth is not the job of marketing. Generating interest is the job of marketing. Now my conclusion on Kevin Smith, as I said in the beginning, I am a fan, and I still am a fan. I just like the guy. Perhaps it's because he was once a heavy-set, bearded guy whose dreams came true. For some reason I like this story. I wonder why. Also, he likes things so much, to the point where people call him a shill. I personally don't think he is. He's just a fan. He was also told by a mentor of his to support the business that supports you. Kevin also seems to be pretty loyal to his friends and family. If you get a chance, listen to the first 12 episodes of the podcast, Jay and Silent Bob Get Old. It is some of the most captivating storytelling I've ever heard. Muse talks about his childhood, his struggle with drug and alcohol addiction in front of an audience with his friend beside him. You'll laugh, you'll cry, but it is captivating nonetheless. Through it all, Kevin stood beside him. That's admirable. He seems like a goofy, fun guy. He took a chance on Motu Revelations, and we really haven't seen if it will pan out. Now, as the time of recording, Clerks 3 is filming. I'm excited to see this. I've given you my thoughts now. I'd like to hear yours. Feel free to comment. As always, fare thee well, my friends, and take care.